This episode of the Helping Healing Humor podcast is brought to you by Liberté Ministries. Freedom. The word alone elicits strong feelings of pride and comfort. That's because it's more than a word. Freedom is something that everyone longs to have in many areas of life. At Liberté Ministries, it's at the focal point of all they do. The word liberté means freedom, and so they strive to help those in Haiti find freedom in education, in economic self-sufficiency, and most importantly, freedom in Christ. Liberté works with 23 congregations of the Lord's people in Haiti and operates 2 schools that have a combined attendance of 600 students. They also have the Haiti School of Biblical Studies, a 4-year college that not only provides crucial training for preachers, but also for teachers and other church leaders. In addition, there is Harry's Home, a children's home that sees to the physical, emotional, and spiritual needs of many children. Go to TravisLovesHaiti.com for more information on how you can help spread the good news of Jesus in Haiti.
Welcome into the Helping Healing Humor podcast with Ben and Travis. I'm Travis Creasy. That's Ben Hayes.
And that's Will Mahan.
What up, fellas?
There we go. And this podcast is brought to you by Lads to Leaders, ladstoleaders.com. Be sure to go and check that out. Ben had a great time at the convention just a few weeks ago. Great program for your church, your young people. Would love to see you join them next year at the convention. Fellas, how are you doing?
I feel like that's a loaded question for Will, so I'm going to let him go ahead and start.
You know, guys, it's what time? We're recording here. It's 10 o'clock. Been in the yard working, with some plumbing issues around the house. So we'll just leave it at that. But it's been a long, 2.5 hours of trying to get a commode to flush, but everything's working. So life is good. Ate my pizza. Here we are podcasting. Life is great for me. Couldn't be better.
You look fresh and clean. I'll just say that. I thought that maybe I had the stinkiest thing today. We had our adoption picnic. Always Endure, who's a good friend of the podcast, hosted an adoption parent kids picnic today for those in the community. And I got on one of those bouncy houses with Daniel, and we just had Creasy mania. I mean, there's wrestling, throwing around. We had it to ourselves for a good 10 minutes. And those things just don't smell good after a while, after it's been hot. Of course, I'm rolling in there sweating, Daniel's sweating, and a bunch of kids had been in there already. So, but Will, you take the crown on this particular day. So congratulations.
I can send you a pair of tennis shoes that need to be washed. I can promise you that. But Amy had
just burn them.
Amy had a dance recital, so it went from very graceful to just, down in the pits. So
that's life, man. That's life.
Your
Saturday has been a picture of what life is from moment to moment.
That's right.
That doesn't take any shine off the fact that we got some Ben and Travis magnets, man, and you can buy those at benandtravis.com. If you're going to be at the Ministry League experience, hopefully we'll have some left over and get your hands on that along with some Reframing Hope books. Hopefully we'll have them in hand. Maybe by the time this airs, who knows?
Can't wait to see that. As you guys can see, I'm in a little different setting today. I've got my mullet-clad brother right behind me here, and our baby pictures in the back. I'm at my parents' house, so my dad's been in the hospital with an illness, and so I've kind of been over here hanging out, and that's where I'm at as we record. So we've all had an interesting weekend, but we're glad to be hanging out together for a little while.
So how many times, Ben, would you say over under that your dad had to get up or your mom had to get up and come into that very living room and tell us to stop being so loud?
There's no telling. A few hundred probably.
And it was usually me laughing just like that.
Shaking the house, laughing at things. Yeah. So
good times had in that house for sure. It is Foster Care Awareness Month, and it is also Mental Health Awareness Month in May of 2022, which both those causes are near and dear to our hearts. And just wanted to jump on, and Ben had come up with a few things that he wanted to share on the podcast this week to kind of commemorate that. I don't know if it's something you celebrate necessarily, but it is, something that's important, something that has come on recently. And, I guess the big thing is that we want to get across as a Christian mental health podcast, is that there shouldn't be any issue with that, being able to admit that we have things that we're working through. I think as Christians, it really should be a natural thing to say, hey, I can't do this on my own and I need help. That's the whole relationship with God. I can't do it, but He can. And then we have that community that we oftentimes talk about.
Yeah, I mean, when we were talking about this, I said I think that'd be great to just talk about 5 things to remember when it comes to that, because I see people all the time. A lot of people are very kind of scared, apprehensive about coming in and talking about things. A lot of people who come in and talk about it said, I've never had these issues before. I've never had these problems before. And it's kind of, weirding me out, the fact that this stuff is coming up now, and I don't know what to do with it. And I always thought people who were anxious were just, whatever. And that, they're kind of getting to experience some of those things for the first time. And so it's just an odd world when you all of a sudden experience. Now, some people have experienced mental health concerns for a long, long time, maybe since they were kids. Sometimes these things just pop up. I mean, there's hundreds of different things that people can deal with. And so it's understandable why sometimes there's this need, it seems like, or this want to cover it up and not talk about it. So I think we wanted to just sort of share some thoughts, and you guys weigh in on this too. I just thought about 5 things. You guys may think about some other ones, but the first one's just the very simple fact of you're not alone. And I think that's what you were getting to. That's one of the things that we've tried to make sure on this podcast, that we've talked about different things that are going on in the world. And I think we know that we mean this in 2 different ways. One, you're not alone when it comes to God. I mean, God's with you. God's understanding. He's the one who made our brain. He knows the untapped potential we have in our brain. But He also, at the same time, He understands that, after the fall, things went crazy and went awry. And so because of the sin and all the stuff that happened after the fall of mankind, He also understands that our brains sometimes don't cooperate well with us, for lack of a better way of putting that. And so, God understands it, but also, there's most of the people out there deal with something. We all deal with something. I've dealt with anxiety. I've dealt with a little bit of depression. I've seen it in my family. All sorts of different things that I've encountered at different times. And so I think everybody has some background or will have some background in this.
Yeah, I think the cool thing, and one of the cool aspects of Christianity, is we have a God who goes with us. And not only goes with us, He's gone before us, He's with us, and He's omnipresent, but He wants to be around us. Ben, I want to be around you. I think most of the time you'd like to be around me, but we do need breaks from each other from time to time. And I think that goes with any human being and another human being. But God doesn't want that. He wants to be with us. And so I go back to that. While we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. And so there's an aspect there of He's not shocked by the things that are going on. He's not looking for a reason to be mad at you. He's not looking for a reason to forsake you. He knows, obviously there's enough evidence there. If He was looking to do that, He could find a reason to. But instead, He wants to be not only walking with you, but in you, indwelling you, and tabernacling among us. And that's just a really neat thought that bears out. And then, Will, you can speak to the body of Christ, the hands and feet as well.
I'm impressed that you used tabernacling as a verb there. I thought that was pretty slick. But I think it's really interesting because that's exactly where my mind was going. because I don't have the expertise that Ben has, with all the years of experience, study, things that he's done, but I want to help, and sometimes, especially for me, sometimes it's hard to see what those needs are. And so I would also challenge, people that may be struggling, whether you have struggled in the past, you haven't, this is new, or it's something that's been with you for a while, to at least just try and talk to somebody. Because there are people like me that don't always see what you're going through, but that have a huge desire to help, and that want to help and that want to do whatever we can. In youth ministry, I've had several people and kids throughout the years that have come to me and said, "Hey, I am struggling." And I never would have thought they would have been the one to be struggling, because from the outside looking, at their life, you go, man, these kids are thriving. Like things are going great. But it's like, as soon as that's known, man, I'm ready to jump. I'll take you to Ben, or I'll take you to Karen. She's been on the podcast. We have such a luxury at Highland Park of great people. And so there are people that want to help. And I'm one of those. And I know y'all are both in that group too. Sometimes it just needs to be made known. And I know that's tough. And I know that Ben, you spoke to that. Sometimes that seems, people, it makes them think they're weak. To me, that makes you look like a giant, in my eyes, to be willing to search out and find that help. So just know there's people like me that want to help, and there's people in your life that desire to help too.
Yeah, and I think that feeds into another one of the points that's that we have here, and that is that what you lack a lot of times is resources or skill with the resources. So you guys, when it comes to even you guys, y'all have resources that can help people. When it comes to your parents, if you're listening to this, your parents have lived longer. It's hard to sometimes, go to them, but they've lived longer. They've got some experience there. They've probably faced some of the things or all of the things that you're facing. And so those resources are super important. A lot of resources are right at our fingertips, whether it's through guys like Will and Travis, through our ministers, through, coaches, through parents. Maybe it's resources online that you just might not have thought about. People dealing with pornography, it may be getting some, Covenant Eyes or one of those programs put on your phones or your computers. People dealing with a lot of different things, man. Podcasts, there's tons of podcasts dealing with, anxiety, OCD, sexual, purity, things like that. I mean, there's all sorts of things that are out there. Now, I guess, vet them a little bit or have someone else, look over them. But man, there's there's apps to help with anxiety, so there's stuff at your fingertips. It's just sometimes knowing that they're there. It's implementing them. It's finding some of those things and tapping into them. It might be medicine for some people, and going to your doctor, to your psychiatrist, somebody who can prescribe medicine, going to a counselor, and finding some techniques and some things to help. But most of the time, what I find with people who come to talk to me is it's just they're not tapping into the resources that are right there.
Yeah, I think to go along with that, and this is one of the other things that you sent us in our Wild and Woolly group text that we have going on, that's best for most of you just to stay out of. But, they're going along with that. There's lots of people who have expertise. Will, I don't know how many years you've worked with youth. The other day I was talking with somebody that I didn't realize I had been in ministry longer than them. And it was like kind of mind blowing to me that was the case. Started thinking about how long I've been in ministry. And I was like, man, I don't like doing all that math because we're like in double digits times 2 on that. But you oftentimes say, what you've been through to some degree equips you to help others through it. And sometimes helping is just getting them in front of the right people. Like Will said, hey, this is, and there's some expertise in knowing the extent of your own ignorance and going, okay, I'm in over my head.
Yeah.
I do need to get to someone who has a little bit better training on this, but also being able to say, I'm here for you. Even if you just need somebody to listen, which is something I'm still working on, just being a listener. But, there are people out there who are trained that you can trust.
There's a lot of people who, and I've seen this for different skills, like for when you will have to call a plumber to come out to your house. A lot of it, and I was listening to a guy who was talking about his battle with OCD, and he mentioned this illustration, and you can use it for any illustration, but say a plumber or somebody who works on your car, we sometimes grumble when they come open our hood and it takes 3-4 seconds for them to fix it and they charge you $75. Or, they come to your house and they're there 15 minutes and it's an $80 charge. And some people struggle with, they come to counseling and they get this bill for counseling that seems outrageous. And all of that kind of comes down to the fact you're not paying that plumber for the 15 minutes they came to your house. You're not paying that mechanic for the 15 minutes under the hood, and you're not paying the counselor for the hour. You're paying them for all of the time that they've spent training so that it only took them 15 minutes. Because, did it take you longer than 15 minutes today to do something that probably would have taken those guys less, but you didn't want to have to pay for it, which is understanding because that's usually what I do anyway, but or I try to do. But at some point, it's the skill that you're paying people for.
Yeah, I mean, it's like my oncologist. He comes in and he pinpoints this is what I think's going on, and then he goes and finds it. And there is a point where you have to get to someone who is what we might call a specialist.
Yeah.
And I think that Karen, you've made mention of this, Lonnie. I'm sure that it's the same way. It's just a different thing that's wrong. There's a very physical thing. If I had a bone sticking out of my arm, I'm probably, you guys might could get me to the hospital, but after that, I'm going to want somebody else to look at that.
Yeah. You don't want me setting it. I promise you that.
Well,
after I threw up a few times and passed out once or twice.
I think too, like in my mind, when I'm, if something's wrong, like I want to prioritize what's wrong, and I think there's sometimes where we go, and I've heard you say this too, Ben, and I've read it in tons of articles. That's like when money gets tight, the first thing we want to throw away is like things that make us healthier and stronger, and it's like, I don't know why it's human nature for us to go, that's not worth it. And maybe it's the ego of I can handle this on my own. I can, it's not.
I know it's that for me. I don't need to bother anybody.
Right.
With my issues,
I think it's those things where it's, I look at that, and times Lindsay and I have both gone to counseling, different, like I want to prioritize myself so that I can be at my best, and something else can take the back seat to me being the best version of myself, and so I think that's just so important.
Somebody along the way has used the masks on an airplane, they drop down, hey, you got to put that on yourself before you can start helping somebody else.
Right.
And I know that's been said on the podcast somewhere. I don't know who said it, but I thought that was really good because, it's going to be really hard for me to be the best dad I can be for my kids if there's something, mentally or physically that's, keeping me from doing that.
Mm-hmm.
I think all of these go back to the Creator, right? I think the one that's next on our list, you are important. I don't want to move on, Ben, if you've got something else you want to add to that part, but you're important. You fulfill a role in this world, and you have been given value that is not dependent on anything. You have an inherent value on this planet, and with that, the air in your lungs that is beneficial to those around you, or can be. And so the idea of having purpose is such a big deal, and you need to be fed into that. And once again, God comes along, creates you, gives you the talents and the abilities, and then the body of Christ, your workplace, all those different aspects of your life. And really, we believe that Christianity is life. That's what it is. It is a lifestyle in which we live. You get to show and display that importance and that value that you've been given by a creator, a sovereign creator God. There's not anybody that can bend God's ear and make you less valuable. I don't get along with everybody I've ever went to church with. And sometimes I can worry about who they're talking to, maybe about me behind my back. But no matter what they say to God, and maybe it's even true, sometimes it is, it doesn't make you any less valuable in His sight.
Yeah, there's this, and I think that kind of goes along with what we're talking about, in the sense that from our importance, sometimes we let other people, we take care of other people so much that it impacts our own health. And I've seen that with several people who just, we talk about pouring out the cup, and we pour it out till it's empty and we never refill it. And so I think that's the kind of the point we're trying to make with this, with counseling or with mental health, is you've got to make sure you're filling your cup somehow, some way, because you're important to God. And if He says, love your neighbor as yourself, there's an importance to loving yourself so that you can pour out to other people. So there's this little story, it's a little book, and I'll summarize it, but it's a like 10, 15 page little book that I sometimes read to clients, and it's called The Cookie Under the Doormat. If anybody wanted to order it, I don't know where you would get it, but I think it was written by somebody at like Northwest Shoals or something.
Maybe on our reading list.
If I can find it, we'll put it. Yeah, we'll put it on there. So the book basically it's not really even a reading book. It's got like a question per page. So Travis, your 2 kids come to you today and they want a cookie. Okay, who's getting the cookie if they both bring it?
If they both bring the question?
I mean, if they bring it to you and go, we want this cookie, who's getting the cookie?
Well, I'll split it down the middle, right?
You can't split it down the middle.
I can't split it. Oh.
No, you got to pick.
And I'm getting the cookie.
And you can't eat the cookie. You got to give it to one of them.
I'm trying to blow this up. Man, that's hard. I don't know. Who's going to whine the most?
Let's say you give it to Daniel, right?
All right, I'm giving it to Daniel.
They come to you tomorrow and they want a cookie again. Who are you giving it to?
Well, Haley.
You can't give it to Haley. You got to give it to Daniel again.
I'm going to give it to Daniel.
So you're going to give it to Daniel again. And let's say that happens for a couple of days, and every time you give it to Daniel, how's Haley going to feel?
She's going to not like me very much.
She's not going to like you. Okay. So let's imagine that somebody comes over to play, say Cypress comes over to play. And this time it's not Haley and Daniel, it's Haley and Cypress. And they bring you a cookie and you give it to Cypress. How's Haley going to feel?
She's going to be feeling terrible.
Pretty rough.
Yeah.
So then the same concept, let's imagine that today or tonight, you and Whitney were going to go out on a date, and somebody's giving you some money to go out on a date, and right before you guys leave, somebody shows up and says, hey, we really, our car just broke down, or we just had a flat and we need $50. Well, that's what somebody gave you to be able to fix it. What are you going to do with that $50?
I'm going to give it to them.
You're probably going to give it to them, right? And, if somebody came over and you were about to have a relaxing night and somebody says, hey, we've got to go to work. We need somebody to watch our kids. What are you going to do? And probably watch their kids, And so basically the story goes that every time that we've had an opportunity to treat ourselves, a lot of times we turn around and we treat and we give it to somebody else. And we constantly pour out, but we don't really take care of our own selves. So then the little book relates it back to, you're like that little kid that's not getting the cookie.
Yeah.
And at some point, it's not gonna like you very much. So our own story
comes from Parks and Rec. Treat yourself. Treat yourself, Dave.
So there's just a need, because if I don't treat myself sometimes, if I don't take care of myself, I'm not going to be able to take care of the people around me. At some point, that if they're relying on me, like right now with my mom, if my dad's kind of relying on her and she wears out, who's going to take care? Obviously there's some of us that can jump in there, but she's not going to be able to if she doesn't take care of herself.
I think to your point, if you go back to Haley, I think it feeds into the last thing we were going to talk about, and that is hope. If she keeps coming and asking, and I keep giving it to Daniel, and they both the tendency is to lose hope. And, hope is such a huge thing in life. I can't overstate the importance of hope, and especially a Christian level of hope where it's not, man, I hope this happens. I hope we win on Saturday, or I hope we win tomorrow night, or I hope, Will comes through in the clutch, and then sometimes we don't. It's a bedrock. This is a lifestyle, and my hope is found in God, and that God is good all the time, and all the time God is good. And a dear friend of mine had a conversation, and they were going through a rough time with one of their kids, and the kid came through, and the doctor said, "Man, isn't God good?" And the friend responded, "Well, God would have been good either way." And I was just like, whoo,
Yeah,
that's it. That's hope. Even when it doesn't feel like it. I think that speaks a lot to what we're thinking. A lot of times we have to talk sense to ourselves, or we need someone to talk sense to us.
Yeah.
Because we all can get caught in our feelings, and sometimes it's not just feelings, it's the reality of the situation. And we need somebody to ground us in that hope. And I think that's once again, the community. People gather together and we worship together and we hear God's word, and it's meditated on, and we're praying it, and we hear it over and over and over again. We need that to keep that foundation of hope.
Yeah, and that point brought to you by Reframing Hope,
Yes,
the book that Travis and Whitney are now selling. But that's exactly right. The idea that so many times I think people begin to give up, and the point we wanted to drive home with that is, if you haven't found the medicine that works, right now, or you haven't found the technique that's helping, keep looking, keep searching. And I tell my clients all the time, look, if I'm not working, if for some reason this isn't helping you, I want you to tell me, and I will find you somebody that can. Because just like Travis, just like Will, we all have our abilities, and we all have the cap on our abilities. At some point I go, hey, I'm not as trained in this area as maybe someone else might be. So I want you to find the help you need. If that's me, I'm going to do everything within my power to help you. But at some point it may be somebody else. At some point it may be medicine. It may be a podcast you listen to that just changes things for you. So whatever that is, we want you to find it.
I love you talk about hope and the idea of keep going. Luke 18 came up in my mind as y'all were discussing the persistent widow. Like, I love that story, where she basically, the judge says, you're going to keep on. All right, I'm going to avenge her just so that I don't have to deal with her, because she kept on keeping on, and that thought to me, just persistent, keep fighting, because you're going to find it, and just keep going. And that's what our podcast is all about. Like, we want you to keep going, because we believe that God will show up, that he will show out, but we've got to do our part just as much as he's already done his for us.
On the Helping Healing Humor podcast, we talk about anxiety and stress and its impact on our everyday lives. We know that finances, including planning for retirement, is one of the leading causes of stress. It can be confusing and overwhelming. There are differing opinions on the best approach. It can be hard to know who to trust. For our retirement planning, Whitney and I trust Greg Howell of Howell Wealth Management at Northwestern Mutual. Greg is professional, knowledgeable, and accessible. He looks at the whole picture and thinks outside the box to create ways to help you reach your financial goals.
Retirement planning can be especially challenging for ministers who do not have the benefit of a 401k, but Greg's expertise and creativity can get you on the right path and give you confidence for the future. Text him to schedule your free 15-minute consultation today at 931-638-1576. Be sure to tell him Ben and Travis sent you. Remember, that's Greg Howell of Howell Wealth Management at Northwestern Mutual, 931-638-1576.
I posted a question in the Facebook group. That's facebook.com/groups/Ben and Travis, that we were going to be recording a podcast. And if there's anything people out there might want to know about us, we'd love for you to join that group. We do that kind of stuff all the time, kind of get feedback, what you guys want to hear. And so the Lads to Leaders question of the day comes from Dr. Alan Baggett, one of my good friends, friend of the podcast. All three of you, this is Dr. Baggett, all three of you are trapped on an island in the middle of the ocean. There is fresh water and plenty of natural resources, but you were only able to bring one additional item from the CYC infomercials. Lift up thine eyelids, youth go potty, communion trays, and wakey sleeper. Is that right?
Oh, yeah.
What else are we missing there?
I think those are the main infomercials, right?
Yeah. What did you bring and why? And we each get one, but once you pick one, my understanding is it's off the list.
Okay. So can we talk about the three items, or do we have to?
I think that's the point, but I would think that maybe one of us has to go first.
Okay. I didn't know if we could levy each other's answers, but
well, I think what it is if one of us jumps in and picks one, then the discussion happens about, okay, well, what do we need next? You know, so we're all three on the island together.
Yeah, and we got to think about what we're keeping.
Bring it. And
so apparently we're in a plane and we have all of our infomercial stuff with us, and we're swimming to shore and we can only grab one item, is what I'm guessing.
Maybe we're doing like a business trip door to door in Europe or something. They saw one of the videos and they're like, we need this stuff. Right. Lift up thine eyelids, youth go potty, communion trays, or a wakey sleeper.
So mine may seem a little bit odd, but I'm taking the largest silver or gold or silver communion tray, the one that holds the cups, and I want the little insert with it too. Okay, so my reasoning for this is I put some thought into this. You've got something shiny to get attention if we need attention gotten.
Okay, we want to stay there. We don't want.
So we're wanting to stay, or we're needing to survive? I don't know. So okay, if we're needing to get off the island, we've got something shiny. We also have something that will catch water if we need it. Okay, and if you have a little insert in it, and the other part, if you just absolutely needed it, you can probably bend that into some hooks, or you could bend it into possibly even like something you could use to cut. Maybe put it on the end of a spear. I don't know. I'm just thinking about the fact that it's multi-use, and then maybe the shiny part of it helps. So I'm taking the cup communion tray.
So I'll go duct tape, because
we did have duct tape.
I mean, if we've got a bunch of trees, we could always chop it down and
shelter.
I don't know if we got anything. I guess we could take your communion tray, make it a sharp edge, and cut stuff.
There you go.
And duct tape it together, and whatever we need. Because duct tape fixes everything.
Using that head, that's what I'm talking about. I like the duct tape. That was on my list in case you guys took something. You can use it for a couple of. But the problem with duct tape is eventually you run out. So I want a big roll. It's got to be.
That's what I'm saying. I think we were going on a business trip, so we were taking a bunch.
Yeah. So at least
these things. But you may actually have more than one tray too.
In our list here, we also have the Whiny to Shiny.
That is true.
Commercial.
Yeah, it is.
And I don't know what's useful. There's some items in it that might be, I guess.
the Youthco
Can I
potty.
take Kenya? Kenya's in Whiny to Shiny, so can I take
There
her
you go.
with me?
Yeah, well,
I mean, I think the Youthco potty brings a lot to the table. There's toilet paper. That's good. There's
That's one item on its own. I don't think you can take the whole thing.
but if you remember back to the video, it's all in.
All in
it comes
one.
in. Yeah, it's all in
the
one.
tub.
That's I like
The
the
team
loophole.
litter, all that stuff.
Which I
Right.
also thought too, in all the videos, the Youthco potty is with a vehicle as well. So I was like, do we get a vehicle with, the Youthco potty? But I mean, you got a big tub
Who's
there.
going to need a vehicle on a deserted island?
You chase some animals. You got, I don't know that we could get away with
I'll hit a deer for everybody. If they need it.
I don't know that teen litter helps us out. Toilet paper for sure. The tub does. It can make a little dining room table for us to sit around and eat at.
I like the bucket. That was going to be my other one for the
bucket was a
business.
good one.
But you got the bucket. You got water. You could take the metal handle and do some stuff with it if you needed to. So
I thought about the communion trays to maybe cook with, in some way, or
there you go.
if you had the little insert that had the holes in it, you could put a fish on it and smoke it.
See, I'm telling you that tray is
Fry
solid.
that egg, buddy. Set it out there in a
So we've got the communion
Cooking egg.
trays, we've got the duct tape, and then are we going with a bucket? Or are we going with what?
In the
Number three.
video,
the video, you got it all.
everything in the tub.
If we're going on
Okay.
a business trip and actually selling these things, you
So-
would have to have the whole kit, right?
Okay,
That's right.
I guess I just was going with Alan's comment of one item.
Yeah.
So I didn't know.
The Youthco potty is one item.
So Alan, there's our answer.
Appreciate you guys. Thank you for your thoughts. And we, as always, are praying and hoping that those who hear these thoughts and words will be helped by them, that would be encouraged, that you are important, that you have hope.
Thanks for being with us for this episode of the Helping Healing Humor podcast. Be sure to download our free ebook, 28 Days of Focused Living, at benandtravis.com and receive all of our Helping Healing and Humor extra content directly in your inbox. We look forward to having you join us at the same Ben and Travis time, same Ben and Travis channel.